Welcome everyone to, I think this is our fourth webinar. We didn't have it last month because we were kind of dealing with re-registration and units were busy. So we figured we'd take the end of last month's webinar, put it to this week. And then since we have a long month, this month, we'll do a second webinar toward the end of the month, but that'll be about four and a half weeks from now. So thanks for being here, and we're gonna jump right in. My name is Christian Chia, the Regiment Executive Officer, and this is just a quick look at our staff. We usually show this at the start of each webinar. So we have our 2 regional support officers, an adjutant, a financial manager, training officer, and DDR officer. Excuse me. And tonight, the presentations we have for you, the topics we're going to cover are uniform inspections by the regiment training officer. This has been a while in the making because she's had technical difficulties the last 2 or 3 webinars, so it'll be nice to finally get this one out of the way. I will talk about conducting unit YMOI boards, Young Men of the Year boards. The regiment commander will talk about the adult volunteer primary uniform, and then we'll close out with a presentation from me on the role of the unit executive officer. So some housekeeping. Cameras aren't preferred. It's just nice for the presenters to be able to see people, but I know sometimes that can be difficult, or maybe there's a Wi-Fi issue. But if you can, please do. It's nice to see our participants. Keep your mics muted during presentations, and then we'll open up an opportunity to unmute and ask questions at the end of each topic. Or if you want, you can ask them along the way in the chat, and then I can kind of moderate them at the end of each presentation. We have to keep questions and comments brief. So if you're asking a question or if you want to make a comment, I'm going to kind of limit you to 20 seconds. Because otherwise we can have a Q&A session that becomes its own 5-10 minute topic. So please keep those brief. After the meeting, I intend to send out a survey and any handouts that might come with the meeting of the presentations. And again, we're just grateful for everybody being here. So I'd like to ask the regiment commander to just give us a welcome, hello, and any opening comments you have for us, sir.
Okay, now that I'm unmuted, end up talking about myself there. So, but welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. It's greatly appreciated. This has been one of the best tools I think we have for communication, and I'm hoping that it's going to continue to stay strong in what we're doing. And again, as Mr. Chinchilla says a lot, if you have any topics or any information you feel that you want to hear about or you want to share, please let us know. So, Chris, let's get into this and let's move forward.
Thank you, sir. And our first presenter tonight is going to be our training officer, Ms. Angelica Mengabe. She's up there in Sacramento, Marines, and she's going to be talking to us about uniform inspections. Go ahead when you're ready, Angelica.
Share my screen right now. Oops. All right, can everyone see this right here? Good.
Yes.
My name is Angelica Mengabe. I am the 1st California Regiment Training Officer. I'm also the Executive Officer for Sacramento Young Marines, and I am also Young Marine alumni. So this is fairly, familiar to me. So I will be doing a presentation on uniform inspections. All right, what you're looking at is the uniform inspection sheet or form from the new basic guidebook. You can find it on Appendix H, page 150. It's very similar to the old inspection sheet with some minor differences. To your right, you can see what a proper uniform is supposed to look like when a young Marine wears it. The white is for national events, and red or unit t-shirts are for just casual drills or unit events. All right, for the uniform inspection, what you'll be inspecting are the covers, the woodland pattern camouflage blouse, the white t-shirts or unit t-shirt, woodland pattern camouflage trousers, khaki web belt, and black boots. In addition to the uniform, hygiene will also be inspected. Usually platoon sergeants or senior young Marines will conduct these uniform inspections, but adult volunteers should also be aware of the uniform regulations, just in case they need to assist a young Marine or fix any errors with the uniform. So you want to begin the inspection starting from the top and working down. So you'll start from the cover and go from hygiene, blouse, trousers, and boots. And the inspection sheet is actually in this format, just so you can avoid skipping around and potentially missing an item. So you're going to direct the young Marine to do an about face to get the full view of an individual's uniform. So you can see if you can ask them to lift their blouse to see if they have their name tapes on the back of their trousers, and see if their shirts are properly tucked in. If an individual does not have an item, such as a cover or a belt, grade it as 0, because you cannot grade a gear item that is not present. So we'll start with the cover. So what you'll be grading is the cleanliness, such as sweat stains, or if there's any starch stains on their cover. You're also going to look at their emblem condition, if it's faded or if it's blurred. You're going to grade if they actually put any effort into ironing their uniform. Most of their covers come already stitched for the 8 points, but some of them don't. So we do require them to at least try to put in some effort to make those creases and create that 8-point shape. You also want to grade if they have any Irish pennants. Irish pennants are the little strings that tend to, get caught, or they're just loose strings that you want to cut off. So what you're going to do, you're going to have the individual remove their cover and hold them straight out in front of you. And that's where you'll be able to grade if they have any sweat stains or if they have any Irish pennants, even on the inside of their cover. And you also want to make sure that their cover is marked, because all covers look the same. You want to make sure that they have their items properly marked as well. Hygiene. Hygiene is where you get to practice the number 2 creed. So keep myself neat at all times without others telling me to. So they want to make sure that they have squared away haircuts, such as males. You need to make sure that their hair is closely trimmed and not hanging on their ears or touching the nape of their neck. When extended and full length, it should not exceed 3 inches. That's the top of their hair. And then their sides should be, like I said, trimmed. Their hair will not interfere with their proper wear of their uniform headgear. So if they put their headgear on, such as their cover, hair that sticks out, if you can see the hair sticking out from their cover, that means that they are out of regulations and that male does need a haircut. Males are not allowed to wear any braids of any sort, have any designs cut into their hair, or have their hair dyed a natural color, such as bleaching their hair when their hair is naturally black. Sideburns will not extend below the top of the orifice of the ear and will not be styled to taper or flare. The length of an individual hair of the sideburn will not exceed 1/8 of an inch when fully extended. Moving on to females. Their hair can be styled in a bun or pinned back in any style. Short hair needs to be brushed and can touch the collar, but cannot fall below the collar. I had difficulty following this one because when I was in Young Marines, I went from a very short bob haircut to growing out my hair while I was in the Young Marines. So it was difficult making that transition from having short hair to having it pinned up. So if you find Young Marines, female Young Marines that have difficulty keeping their hair above the collar, make sure that they're using enough gel and enough bobby pins to make sure that their hair is within Young Marine regulations. Facial hair. Mustaches are allowed, and they can't go past the lip line, and the mustache hair needs to be less than ½ an inch. Beards are not allowed. If we go back, let's see if I can go back. This Young Marine right here to the right, he does have a mustache, and it does fall within Young Marine regulations. So as you can see, it does not fall past the lip line or extend past the creases of his lips. Fingernails. Fingernails should always be trimmed and cleaned under the nails. They cannot, make sure they're freshly trimmed. A lot of Young Marines have difficulty keeping their fingernails clean. So usually have your Young Marines or your Young Marine recruits wash their hands before inspections. Cosmetics. Females, they do need parent and guardian permission to wear cosmetics. And if they are wearing any at all, it needs to match their skin tone. It needs to be natural as well. So no eyeshadow, no blush, no winged eyeliner, anything like that. Makeup will be applied conservatively. And like I said, it should be natural and match the individual's skin tone. Let's see, lipstick and nail polish colors to include colorless nail polish are authorized for uniform wear, but non-eccentric lipstick. So again, natural looking and nail polish, a clear coat is allowed. Let's see, lip gloss is absolutely not allowed, and anything that is bright should not be allowed while wearing the uniform. Fingernails with multiple colors and decorative ornamentation are considered eccentric and may not be worn. The nail length to include false nails will be no longer than 1/4 of an inch from the tip of the finger. Jewelry. The only jewelry permitted are watches, medical items, medallions, clasp, or Young Marine rings. All jewelry will be removed for physical training activities. Small silver or gold polished ball or round stud earrings may not exceed 6 millimeters, which is about 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and may be worn with any uniform. When wearing earrings, they must fit tightly against the ear and may not extend below the earlobe. And if the female has multiple holes in their ear, then it must be worn out on the lowest hole. Earrings are not allowed for male Young Marines. Let's see. All right, ribbons and breast insignias. So ribbons are supposed to be worn 1/8 of an inch above the left breast pocket patch and centered. They should be in the order that the awards manual lists them in, and they can be worn in 3s or 4s. Ribbons that become soiled or faded should be replaced. Also frayed ribbons that tend to get caught on the ribbon racks or any other material should also be replaced. So now you are going to be grading the placement. We'll be grading the placement and serviceability, name tag placement, and Irish pennants. So the camouflage blouse. All the stitching is usually done when young Marines graduate or individuals graduate from recruit training. So this should be done prior to their graduation. When you bring their patches in to be sewn, make sure you bring in a picture, say like this picture below, to the tailor, just to make sure they actually get the placement and everything correctly done. But sorry. The camouflage blouse is be worn with the young Marine breast pocket patch centered and above the left breast pocket, 1/8 of an inch above the pocket. The shoulder patch is worn on the left sleeve, and the unit designation arc is centered above the patch on the left shoulder seam. Name tapes should also be flush to the seam and above the right pocket. And chevrons. Chevrons are important. I've seen chevrons placed or worn upside down with point facing downwards. This is an easy fix. Make sure that young Marines always have the point facing towards their neckline. When placing their chevrons onto their uniforms, it must be a 1/2 inch from both edges of the collar, as you can see from below on this diagram. Let's see, blouse and web belts. So for the blouse, you're gonna grade cleanliness. You're gonna grade also how well it fits and if they iron their uniform and if they check their uniform for any Irish pennants. For the web belt and the brass, you're gonna check the length of their belt. It needs to be 2 to 4 inches beyond the belt buckle. But you're going to make sure that it's also clean and that it's worn based on military alignment. So you're going to check the gig line. The gig line is the alignment of the seam of the uniform shirt down to the belt buckle and uniform trouser fly seam. So make sure that the belt buckle is aligned to the fly seam, as you can see below. Belt buckles, make sure they're not scratched and that they are highly shined. And then Irish pennants, you just want to make sure that the belt itself is not frayed. When cutting a belt, make sure that you cut from the belt buckle side itself and not the end tip of the belt. I've had young Marines and also recruits cut their belts and then say that they don't know how to get the end tip back onto the belt. Well, it's because you're not supposed to cut from that side. The belt buckle on a web belt comes off. You just have to unlatch that part off of it, and then you're going to cut accordingly to the individual size. Trousers and footwear. Cleanliness is going to be graded, as well as the fit and press. Again, if it fits and if they ironed it. Make sure their pockets are secured so you can ask the young Marine to try to lift up their pockets and make sure that they don't come undone. And then also you want to check if they check their uniform for any Irish pennants. Footwear, if they have the old style military boots, tropical boots or jungle boots or combat boots, you want to make sure that individuals are putting an effort to make these shine. My standards when I was a young Marine, as well as now when I'm the XO of a unit, I want my young Marines boots to reflect, they should be mirrors. It does take some time and it does take layers and layers, but they can get to that point where you can see yourself in it and use it as a mirror. Let's see. Serviceability for boots. You want to make sure that neither end is coming undone. So you want to make sure that they don't have talking boots. If any of the heel is coming off, they either need to secure it with glue or they need to buy some new boots. Final comments. you want to at least include one knowledge question or two from the guidebooks. So it's going to depend on their rank. So if it's a young Marine that's in their basic guidebook, you can ask them what the young Marine creed number 2 is. This is not listed in the inspection sheet, but I always look to make sure that young Marines are wearing their red cord on the right wrist. Inspections are a great time to make sure that certain gear items are marked, such as covers, because everyone's cover looks alike. And again, practice makes perfect. I know that we can't expect 8-year-olds to get this squared away right off the bat, but as they progress in the Young Marine program, they will become to be very fit to get their uniform squared away. So what we want to do, we want to focus on the basics such as uniform wear and care, also inspections. I would say at least have one per quarter just to make sure that everyone's on the same page and they are keeping we are setting the standards, and we are maintaining high standards as well as the Young Marine program. And that concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Calamasandra, yes, sir.
Yeah, so thank you, sir. Ma'am, like what's the guidance on the scoring, like how to, on the uniform inspection sheet, how they can put the scoring?
Right, I wasn't able to find that in the guidebook, but based off of the scoring from the previous uniform inspection sheet, it was each discrepancy was 2-point deduction. So if they had Irish pennants on their blouse once, it was -2 points, and if you found another Irish pennant, it was -4 points altogether. For the knowledge questions, if a young Marine just bombs that question, it's a total of -5 points from their score sheet.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Maybe this may be an opportunity as a regiment, like we can try to provide some guidance so that all the units can do it in a consistent way. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so again, good evening. Just a couple comments real quick. First of all, Angelica, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
So if a lot of us have gone through these inspections, and if you haven't developed a good format or format, I suggest you do. I also suggest that you try to have inspections monthly, just because it keeps the kids on their toes, number one, and they can expect that there's going to be an inspection. A lot of you have your senior young Marines do that inspection, which is great. That's what they're supposed to be doing. I would suggest that the unit commander, maybe once a quarter, get involved. You may not be the one doing the inspections, but go ahead and ride along with that team doing the inspection, because it brings some credence when the commander's out there looking at the young Marine, and then it gives you a one-to-one moment, because you're there, you're seeing, and you're hearing, especially when it comes to questions, and you get to know your young Marines a little bit better. Thank you, sir.
All right. If there's more questions about uniforms, we can jump into that a little bit later on if we have time at the end. So what I'm going to do is transition us to our next presentation, which is actually from me. And we're going to talk about conducting a unit's Young Marine of the Year board. So this is a topic that I would love to make it 30 minutes or an hour. So some of this is going to be really flyby. My focus is going to be on the conduct of the board itself, kind of the day of stuff with flyby info about preparing for the board and database entry. So if there's comments or questions you have regarding those two, you can bring them up. So I should go for about 20 minutes. I'm going to try to tighten it up, but just know that I'm aware of my time. I've actually got a timer going. So I'll be referencing the Adult Volunteer Manual, the Awards Manual, and the Young Marines database. So for anybody who's not familiar, you can, usually UCs and adjutants kind of know this stuff, but the rest of us, we don't always look around in the database. But if you're not familiar with it, you can go into the database and check out this UMOI section here, and it will tell you the requirements for each level. Quick note, you might see here that now there is a regiment junior Marine of the Year and a senior Marine of the Year. I'm not going to get into that right now because we're talking about unit, but those are there, and that's been updated due to the dissolution of battalions. But it'll show the requirements. You can check who is eligible in your unit, either everybody that is eligible or all active Marines, so you can see maybe where some people are missing something. And then the unit board section here is where you can actually set up your board and indicate who the board members are and so forth. This doesn't open until October 1st. So even if you conduct your board on the beginning of September, which is fine, it's legitimate, you kind of have to twiddle your thumbs before you finally get the chance to enter this, because the database doesn't open this up until the 1st. I typically don't do my unit Marine of the Year board until the first week of October, just for that reason. So for example, my board is going to be this Saturday. So when you're setting up the board, I pulled this from the Adult Volunteer Manual, page 7-1. And this basically breaks down how the unit Marine of the Year board should look. And we're going to extrapolate a lot from this tonight over the next few minutes, because this is essentially it. These requirements here pretty much tell you what you're supposed to do, and from there you can kind of get creative with certain things. There's a note there that says all Marine units shall have a unit Marine of the Year, and that's important. I think if I've had UC say, well, all our eligible Marines just don't meet the muster, and I don't feel comfortable giving it to any of them. If that's the case, I invite you to look in a mirror and realize that you might be the problem. If you have a unit full of eligible Marines and you don't feel like any of them deserve to be recognized as the Marine of the Year, the problem is probably not with the Marines. It's probably with how the unit is being trained and structured, and maybe we need to raise some standards. So I'm off my soapbox, but I just wanted to get on it for a minute there. But as far as the requirements here, you can see from section A there that there's got to be at least 3 adult volunteers, the UC, the XO, and 1 additional adult volunteer. You can invite a senior Marine to it if they're not a candidate for the board, and you can invite, you can invite a guest member. We've had law enforcement officers, we've had VFW members step on as special guests. So you can have up to 5. I wouldn't go beyond that, but you need at least those 3 minimum adult volunteers. And then it tells you about how questions must be asked by each board member in the same way. Each board member asks 2 questions. We're going to dig into that a little bit later. The point here, though, is that that UC, XO, and 1 additional AV, you might run into a situation because they can't be related to the Marine. I forgot to mention that, but they can't be related to any of the candidates. So if you run into a situation where all of your adult volunteers are related to eligible candidates, a way that you can solve that is by reaching out to other units and asking them to provide adult volunteers and to conduct your board. There's nothing wrong with that. So, and even if you're at a great distance from other units, you could potentially run a Zoom board where your candidates are in there in person at drill, and you invite a board member or 2 from another unit on a Zoom call. So there's ways to be creative, but we want to make sure that we're not skipping the board, or we're not populating it with the wrong people simply because of inconvenience. We want to find a way instead of avoid the inconvenience. So it's important to get all the details prepared first: what's your date, time, location, uniform, identify your board members and let them know, invite your special guest if you're going to have one, and then announce it to the unit about 1 to 3 weeks ahead of time. And it's important that when you announce it, everything's already prepared. You know who your guest is, you know who your board members are going to be. Because if you start with that preparedness, it gives the Marines a chance to prepare themselves as well. It's good to explain the purpose again. So, you're probably going to have new Marines from recruit training that have graduated who are not eligible yet because they have to be in the program for a year first. But this is their introduction. So whether they're eligible or not, it's good to review what this is and why we do it. Explain the ways that the Marines can prepare and how the board will be conducted ahead of time. And then provide a follow-up email to your eligible candidates with very clear instructions so that they can refer back to it and get themselves ready. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I want to hit these last 2 bullet points very importantly, or I find them very important, and I really want to make sure that this is clear. So another soapbox moment. Require participation. I've had unit commanders or units tell me that, well, you know, we have 10 eligible candidates, but only 2 wanted to compete. And so of those 2, we chose this guy or this gal. Well, why is that? Why are you letting all those 8 other young Marines not participate? Well, they don't want to. They should show initiative. If you ask, you know, if you're a parent, and many of you are, and you say, hey, son, daughter, do you want to stay in bed and continue sleeping, or do you want to go out and help him with yard work? What are they going to say? They want to stay in bed. Most kids are like that. They want to take the path of least resistance. But that's why you don't say that. You say, hey, get up, get out of bed. We're going to clean the yard. And I'm sure my dad's chuckling because he did that to me while I was growing up. It's the same thing with our Yamoy board. Young Marines don't want to participate, not because they don't want to win. It's because they're afraid of being judged. They don't want to have to necessarily do the work to prepare for it. And they're scared of losing. But the Young Marines program is meant to strengthen the lives of America's youth. So what good are we doing if we're letting them skip out on things like this in our program? What's it going to teach them when they're older and they have an opportunity to go for a scholarship for college or to apply for a job or whatever? Think of the Yamoy board not only as a chance to select a deserving Young Marine of the Year, but also to give all of your eligible Young Marines the opportunity to grow from this experience and to learn from failure, to learn how to prepare, even to feel that discomfort of not being prepared, so that it might motivate them in the future to do that. So require everybody to participate if they're eligible. That includes this next bullet point, which is do not pass up your senior Young Marines. I hear this a lot. Well, we don't have our senior Young Marines on the board because we want to give the little guys a chance, the Young Marine corporals and the Young Marine PFCs. I don't think that's appropriate. All eligible Young Marines means all eligible Young Marines, and that includes your Young Marine Master Gunnery Sergeants and Master Sergeants and Gunnery Sergeants and so forth. The way our Yamoy system is set up, those people can compete at a higher level, granted, without having to compete at the lower level. And yes, sometimes it feels like, well, you know, we gave it to our gunnery sergeant, but you know, these poor little 10 PFCs that participated, what do they get? Well, let me tell you what they don't get. If you don't have your senior Young Marines participate and you select, you know, from your younger Young Marines or your lower ranking Young Marines, and you say, hey, Young Marine Lance Corporal, congratulations, you're a Young Marine of the Year. That Young Marine Lance Corporal has that ribbon on his or her chest, and knowing, and they're thinking to themselves at some point, yeah, I won, but I might not have won if the Young Marine Master Sergeant had competed. So instead of giving them something, you've now taken something away from that accomplishment. You've made it less important. But if they were to win it, knowing that they competed against a Master Sergeant, that's a pretty important thing for them. And so we want to give them that opportunity. They might not win, but the senior Young Marine might not win either. I've had boards where I've had a Young Marine Gunnery Sergeant, a Young Marine Master Sergeant along with everybody else, and we selected the Young Marine Corporal. And another year we selected the Young Marine Sergeant or Young Marine Lance Corporal. And it's a little bit eye-opening to those senior Young Marines because they start getting, let's be honest, they start getting a little full of themselves when they get to those upper ranks. They start calling other Young Marines kids as if they're not still children themselves. They start kind of, you know, I don't need to participate on that board. But the problem is what it really is they're afraid too. They don't want to lose to a lower ranking Young Marine. So it's good to keep them involved and to keep pressing them to continue, to remind them that every day you must prove yourself. Those are 2 big things that I've heard from units, and I really, if you take nothing else away from this, please take those 2 points away. So selection package is not required on the unit level, but it is for the regiment, division, and national levels. It's nice to maybe do a lighter version of a selection package. This is where they prepare a folder, maybe a small essay on what they would do as Young Marine of the Year, you know, maybe their latest report card or progress report. It's good to do that on a unit level, at least in a condensed fashion, so that they're kind of used to the idea for when they become eligible for higher levels. So you can take a look in the adult volunteer manual and see what the higher level selection packages look like and maybe adapt, but you don't have to. So the conduct of the board, this is kind of the meat and potatoes here. The day of, it's good to review the procedures ahead of time with all the eligible candidates. Get them in the room and talk to them and say, this is what we're expecting today. Here are your board members. We'd like them to introduce themselves to you. Here's how we expect you to enter the room and exit the room. Talk to them about how to answer questions. We're gonna talk about questions in a minute. but set their expectations, remind them of the things you already announced to them previously and you already sent an email to them for, but give them that day of reminder. If available, it's good to have a senior young Marine assisting with bringing in candidates, such as the young Marine in this example on the left here. He's a senior young Marine and he's assisting the board. As far as conducting the board, I pulled this from a division board that I attended where I had a candidate on the board, and I noticed the division board members were standing. They were already standing when a candidate came into the room, and I thought that was an interesting way to greet your young Marines. It shows a level of respect for them instead of you sitting in judgment and upon them. You're standing too. You're part of this process with them, and I think it's a good way to start the board. Again, I'm pulling this from the division board that I had the privilege of seeing in part, and I know that they started their board with the Pledge of Allegiance. And this is interesting because the instruction is usually, young Marine, we're going to ask you to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. And then sometimes a young Marine will go, well, what does that mean? What do you mean lead it? You say, you know what, interpret that how you will. And this is an interesting thing because you see them react in different ways. I've had young Marines come in and just start reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. They don't even place the flag in the room. And they kind of stumble through it. I've had other young Marines come in and they call us to attention and ready, face, hand salute, ready, begin. And we, the adults, are like, okay, and we do it according to their commands. So this is a chance for them to show some leadership. It's a really interesting scenario if you just say, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, but don't offer guidance, let them interpret it. After that, the board members can take their seat. We ask the young Marine to recite their obligation and creed. We can do a uniform inspection formally if we want, or if we're limited on time, we can always just kind of do an up and down and make a note of it on each board member sheet. And then we have a candidate take a seat and put them at ease for a question and answer. So again, this is just a kind of look, you take it seriously. We have our 3 adult volunteers here. We have our senior young Marine assisting. We have our special guest from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. We have our 10 or 15, however many candidates. We're doing the quick review. The young Marines are squared away. The adult volunteers are also squared away. Our table is not cluttered. It is clean. It is clear. We have our water. We have our pens. We have our paper. We are ready just as much as we expect them to be ready. So again, we go forward, and every young Marine has their opportunity to present themselves. As far as the questions, it's good to, just a reminder, have a copy of the obligation and creed available for the guest board member because they typically have no idea if it's right or wrong. So it's good to have that for them. The questions should be printed and have a copy of them for each board member. And then as the board member, or as the questions are being asked, each board member should be able to make notes on their sheet of paper for that particular young Marine of all the questions. So you're kind of writing down the gist of how they're answering. And that's going to come up in discussion later when you're making your selections. The question should be asked in the same order, in the exact same way for each candidate. So I'm going to focus on this bold part here. No follow-ups, no helping, no judgments or compliments. So, for example, your question might be, why is servant leadership important? And the young Marine says, well, it's good to set an example. 5 seconds go by, and it's clear that they're done talking. You should not follow up with, well, can you give me an example? Do you want to expand upon that a little? No, because now you have asked a question that is not on the question sheet. And you have just violated the rule in the adult volunteer manual that says 2 questions per board member. So there are no follow-ups. There's also no helping. So if they're sitting there silent, did you understand the question? Do you want me to repeat it? Do you want me to explain it? No, you need to just let them sit there and figure it out. And no judgments or compliments. So they give you an answer. It's a pretty good answer. And you say, excellent, great answer. No, don't say that. Don't offer them a judgment like that. Say thank you and let the next board member ask their question. If a YM asks for clarification or would like you to repeat the question, by all means, then you can do that. So if they say, well, I don't understand what servant leadership is, you should give a succinct and brief answer. Servant leadership is when we focus on serving our followers rather than just giving them orders. It's succinct and we're not helping them, move along. If they're asked to repeat the question, maybe you can repeat it a little bit more slowly, but you shouldn't change the wording. And be willing to sit in silence. Sitting in silence is something that people are so uncomfortable with, and it's so good to get over that. So a young Marine will ask a question, and they're trying to think, they're trying to get an answer, and 5 seconds go by, and 10 seconds go by, and you're starting to sweat and get nervous as much as they are. Why? Leave them alone. Meditate. Think about, play the Jeopardy song in your head, whatever it is, but sit there in silence and let them sit there in silence. Let them feel that discomfort. The senior board member should probably keep in his or her head to count to about 60. And then at that point, if you reach 60 seconds, say, thank you, we're going to move on to the next question. But there shouldn't be, hey, don't be nervous. Hey, it's okay, relax. No, hey, this is game day. You can nudge, guide, help, advise, blah, blah, blah during drills and encampments. And all. That's what all that's for. This is game day. This is performance. Let them sit in that discomfort. Let them stew. Let them feel it, and then move on if they don't have an answer. On that note, your patience will probably pay off. I've gotten to 55 seconds, and just when I'm ready to move on, the Marine says, "Well, sir," and they give us an answer. So sometimes they need that time. So go ahead and give it to them. What kinds of questions can you ask? It's good to focus around the topics of our program: DDR, community service, leadership, etc. You can ask some scenarios, things like that. You got to remember that you have a wide age range. So if you're going to ask a question, it might be something that is this appropriate for my 9 or 10-year-old candidates as much as my 14, 15-year-old candidates. So you might want to think about it ahead of time. Don't make questions up on the day, and don't let board members just make them up. There should be the senior board member making out those questions ahead of time so that the questions are balanced and cover a good amount of topics. Whereas when you let people make them up the day of, suddenly you've got 5 questions on leadership, no questions on DDR, and one weird question that the guest asked, and you're like, oh, that's a really odd question to be asking our UMOI board. So set those up ahead of time. Or if you want, maybe give your board members a chance to send you an email and say, hey, give me 3 or 4 suggestions. Some examples here, you've heard that a fellow young Marine in your unit has been vaping at school. How would you handle the situation? A young Marine 2 ranks above you is showing disrespect. How would you address this? In what ways have you served your community beyond our unit activities? This is a fun one. Whom should we choose as the unit young Marine of the year? I love asking that question because they look at you, and some of them will get bold and they say, well, sir, not to brag, but I think you ought to choose me. Some will say, if you're not going to choose me, you ought to choose this person. And, and others will just say, not me, somebody else. But whether they brag and say, choose me, or they push it off on somebody else, neither of those should knock them out of your consideration. They shouldn't be dismissed as arrogant or as too shy. Instead, it's like, what's behind that answer? And it's a very interesting question to ask. And then if it's not clear already, questions should not be knowledge or guidebook based. So we're coming toward the end of the presentation and try to wrap this up in about 2 minutes. As far as selection, there's some freedom here. Nothing in the adult volunteer manual says that you have to go by points or that you have to go by a vote. If you want, you can go by objective points. You can score question answers and say, I gave 5 points for that answer and 4 points for this answer and 5 points for the uniform and go by that. You could also just say, hey, look, these are our top 3 candidates based on our discussion. Let's vote. Who do we want as number 1? Or the UC can say, hey, we're going to have a discussion. I'm going to take all your input and then I'm going to make a decision on my own. All of those are valid, but the key is to make that process clear up front so that nobody's surprised. You wouldn't want a board member saying, I thought we were going by points, and feel a little like undermined kind of thing. You might want to pull, in fact, you should pull attendance records, community service hours, DDR hours, and things like that in cases of a tie, and just to make sure that you're kind of looking at the whole young Marine over the course of their year, not just who they are on the board. And the most important thing is that you've got to be able to justify that selection if anybody were to ask you. That doesn't mean that you have to make people happy with the answer. It just means that you have to have a reasonable justification. It also doesn't mean that you have to share everybody's board sheets and stuff. There is a level of privacy that you should be able to expect with those board sheets that are written up about them. And then this little blurb here was taken from the adult volunteer manual about selecting a young Marine whose overall maturity, poise, and confidence is what we're looking for. And then it's time to announce. Get the word out. They've earned this. It's taken a year for them to earn this position, so let them get there and show them off to the program, because that's what they're there for. And then the other thing too is what now? So you selected them, but a lot of unit UMOIs, once selected, just fade off into the distance. We never hear from them again. So what I like to do in my unit is we have UMOI times, 10 to 15 minutes per drill, where our unit UMOI can present pretty much any topic that they want. I encourage them to focus on leadership, teamwork, or discipline, or the importance of upcoming holidays. So it's nice, sometimes we We're moving so fast with community service that we don't actually remind ourselves, what is Flag Day? When was it founded? Why is it important? What is Pearl Harbor Remembrance? What is Navajo Code Talkers Day? So give this task to your unit Yomoy and keep them active and busy throughout the year, and make it something that, wow, the young Marines go, I want to be in that position next year. I'm really going to work for that, because I know that I get to stand up and be in front of people. So just a quick review, always prepare ahead of time, announce the board to the unit ahead of time and clarify expectations, conduct the board in a professional manner, announce the winners, celebrate them, and put them to work. And then it's always good to ask for an after action report from your board members and your candidates to see how you might improve in the next year. So that concludes my presentation. 21 minutes, a minute above what I had hoped for, and I just wanted to see what questions we might have. And hold on, I'm trying to.
So there is one question, Chris, about IEP. Go ahead.
Yes, can you guys hear me good?
Yeah.
Okay, I had a question in regards to
Yes.
IEPs or kids with disabilities. How, I know you said no encouraging and stuff like that. Can we accommodate for those kids that have like autism, learning disability, that do have to get explained a little bit more?
Yeah, there's always that. So the short answer is absolutely. Whatever is a reasonable accommodation, you can make that. And hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. My other question is in regards to the attendance. I know I've talked to other Mr. Chinchilla, Danny. Do excused absences count?
So when we look at the attendance ribbon is not okay with excused absences in terms of awarding it. I would apply that standard to our Young Marines of the Year. I've seen so many Young Marines that get away with having 100% attendance, but you look and you realize that no, they've been excused from like half the drills.
Yes.
So I would say no, or you can at least look at that number when you're comparing it. But that's something that the unit can decide for itself.
Roger. Thank you so much.
So we're coming up on the end here, and I had a whole other topic, but 7:30 is our deadline. So I'm going to hand this over to the regiment commander and let him present. And I was going to talk about the role of the unit XO. I'm sorry to disappoint. I think I'm going to hold that off until our next webinar at the end of this month. But I wanted to hand over the meeting to Mr. Chinchilla for his presentation.
Thank you, sir. Do you want to go ahead and pop that PowerPoint up? Do you have it?
Yes, yes.
All right, very good. So great topics this evening, and actually it's fascinating because they all came together rather well. I don't know if you can go into presentation mode, but if you can, that would be great. The main thing that I hear about here is challenging our young Marines, and that's important. That's important because when I look around, not only our regiment but across the division, and then you look at the caliber of some of our young Marines, we can be doing a better job because it's on us. And if we're lax, they're going to be lax. So what I want to talk to today a little bit about is just our uniforms, and I'm not going to get nitpicky, but this is out of the volunteer manual. You can go to chapter 8, page 15. Next one, Chris, please. And thank you. On that page, you're going to find this information here about khakis, black polos, black staff t-shirt, all the way down to boots and so forth. So the main thing that I really want to reach out to everybody here and ask you to challenge each other in your units is to get more consistent with the uniforms that you guys are wearing and what you are showing your young Marines as far as unity. Go ahead to the next one, sir. The main thing is that I'm not trying to tell you that you have to wear the uniform that's stated in the manual specifically, because we all have our sense of pride. We all have our own special unit shirts. We like certain colors. Antelope Valley, for example, we do have red polos, we have gold polos, we have our black polos. Right? The main thing though is that what I'm looking for, and I'm asking all of you again, is to challenge each other to work and be consistent. So because we're all wearing polos doesn't mean somebody's wearing khakis, somebody's wearing jeans, somebody's wearing shorts, no, that's not what we're after. We expect our young Marines to be in a complete uniform. We should be in a complete uniform. And we should carry ourselves with the same type of criteria that Ms. Mangabey was explaining, that they should be pressed, they should be creased, they should be clean, they should be serviceable. Go ahead, sir. And it's a matter of our personal, not only our personal pride, but our kids, they look up to us. When, I don't know if you all fall in with your units, I know, you know, a lot of units do. My staff, when our kids are falling out or when we have the colors in the morning, we'll be lined up behind the platoon, just showing the respect that we need to, but we are in uniform and we're all looking the same. And that's what I believe really brings a little esprit de corps to the units themselves. So make sure we maintain them and we take care of them. Last one, I believe. So this is why, because it is up to us to set the example. If we can flex on the way we look and we can flex on the way we appear, it's kind of difficult for us not to allow them to do so also. And you know, when you're sitting there and you're doing an inspection, like I said, commanders, get out there and every now and then be part of that inspection team, right? Because it's kind of hard for you to stand there and try to judge or inspect a young Marine when you yourself are not squared away, right? So if we expect the conformity of our young Marines, we ourselves have to conform. So please take that into consideration, give it some good thought, and push it across your unit. Thank you. Good.
Thank you, sir. What questions do we have about that?
On the shoes, do they have to be black? Or can they be like athletic shoes? Comfy athletic shoes?
Right, it gives you, it does give you some options, but for, all right, let me say it this way. For the cargo pants, we wear 511s and we wear boots with those. If we're in a, what I would call a more dressier uniform where you're wearing khaki trousers, you know, I tend to wear all the nice, you know, shiny shoes, but at a unit drill, I can understand the idea about being comfortable. So that's at the unit, but as long as everybody's consistent, I wouldn't want everybody and you know what, I'm going to step on myself there because I'm going to tell you honestly, I would prefer that if you're wearing tennis shoes, get them black and have the entire staff wear black tennis shoes. That would at least be uniformity, right? So for us, it's black shoes in one form or another.
And that's all black. So I've had an adult volunteer he's actually a Young alumni show up to drill and he had black shoes with like white trim. I said, come here, come on, man, what are you doing? Retired Young Marine Master Sergeant. So he actually, I don't think he fixed it the next drill, but he's getting deployed. So that'll give him some time to think about what he did. But yeah, I encourage that uniformity too. What other questions about any topics in our last couple of minutes here? Ms. Mangabey, looks like you raised a hand.
Yes, sir. So for the 8-point khaki covers for adult volunteers, I know it's up to the unit commander to wear those, but I heard that we are making the switch altogether to khaki ball caps. Is that correct? As a program?
I'll find out. I guess we have a division meeting coming up next week. I have not heard that.
Okay.
But you know, and I'll be honest with everybody here, that is a little bit about, there is a bit of contention on the laxity that's starting to happen. And that's, we have conversations coming up on that. So, but I have not heard that. So for now, go ahead, sir.
Since you mentioned the cover, a reminder too, there's nothing, there should be nothing on the cover, no emblems, no eagle open anchors. But I earned this. Okay, calm down. It's a khaki cover. Relax, Marine veteran. I'm a Marine veteran too. I am still a Marine without putting an emblem on my cover. So that needs to start going away. And unit commanders, you need to start holding that standard because they are violating our uniform regulations when adult volunteers put any emblem of any kind on their cover. Unless they are wearing the alternative camouflage cover. Mr. Gerber, go ahead, sir. If they're wearing the full uniform, that is. Go ahead, Mr. Gerber.
Since they're maybe having a conversation. I would just like to put something out there because I made the allowance for our unit. I've had 2 kinds of skin cancer. I don't want the third. A ball cap does not protect. It doesn't protect my neck. So we wear or have the allowance to wear a wide brim khaki hat within my unit. Something to throw out there because, you know, everybody has the same thing. You know, we have the sun, we have skin cancers. So if it's going to a division, if it's going higher, could we ask for something different?
Yeah, that could be an interesting comment, or maybe if not something different, maybe a different, you know, more allowances, more options, kind of like there's allowances for shorts, for cargo pants and stuff. That's a good point. Of course, there's also, going back to that, reasonable accommodations. I've had adult volunteers say, hey, look, you know, this style of boots really hurts, you know, an injured foot that I have or whatever. Can I wear these shoes if they're all black or whatever?
And when I did it, I bought enough for everybody if they chose to wear it. Most choose not to wear a cover, but if we were going to do it, we were going to do it as a uniform to say, don't everybody just go buy your own wide brimmed hat that looks different. So we're trying to keep it uniform.
So on that note, what I will simply say is that, again, I am not trying to get every unit to adhere specifically to the requirements of the manual. What I am asking is that you look for uniformity within your unit and your adult volunteers. That's a special condition, okay? I wouldn't wear one, but then I'm not worried about, you know, cancer, I don't have it, or I'm not dealing with it. But if a person does, and there's a medical reason, absolutely. I mean, you have to consider that. We're not that stringent, right? But the thing is we're looking for the uniformity. So if you're the only one in your unit, okay, you know, that's an accommodation. I agree with Mr. Chinchilla. You know, those things will happen. I got a young Marine right now who's in a boot, but he still puts on his, you know, his camis, and then, you know, he's got a little scooter and he's, you know, rolling around in it. So that's fine. I mean, until he gets healed. So think about it that way.
So I want to thank everybody for being here. I'm noticing we're seeing some same faces, so I appreciate the repeat business. Tell your friends and family, and have them start showing up too. It's good to get the information. It's important that the more of us that are here, the more we can spread this information out, and the more we can talk about it. No, we're not saying that what we present is the end all be all. What we're trying to do is open that discussion, either at your units or on a one-on-one basis, or even a little bit here. So nice to see you, unit commanders. Nice to see you, executive officers. Go start bringing the rest of your staff to these webinars, and we'll have another one in about 4 weeks. So there'll be a follow-up email, handouts from this, if any, like the uniform inspection sheet, the survey, just to see what was helpful or what you'd like to see next ones, and as always, staff contact info. Hold on, I'm having a glitch.
Could I get you to email your Yamoy presentation out to the commanders?
Sure, I'll tighten that up and send it out. And that'll be it. So again, if you're looking for support for your regiment or your unit, the regiment staff is intact. We have a financial manager, adjutant, DDR officer, and 2 RSOs, as well as the commander and myself. So please contact your regional support officer. They're all actually going to training nationwide this weekend, and I'm sure they're going to be ready to come back and do their best to support units as much as possible. So we're here. I encourage you to go forth, make an impact, and thank you for being here.
Hoorah. Semper Fi, everybody. Good night.
Can I speak to both